following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbb-radio.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Next of Kin podcast. I'm your host, Rich, joined by my son, Christian. How you doing?
What's up?
What do you got over there?
Water.
You got snacks? Chomping on the Pringles in the middle
dinner.
of a podcast?
I'm going to be eating.
Dinner. Well, you worked like a 9-hour shift today. I think
yeah.
you were busy today.
My dog was very happy with
And
me.
your dog was not happy with you leaving so quickly. So here we are. We're back with another episode. Tonight's episode is a little bit different. It's kind of back to a lot of news. We have a lot of topics that we want to talk about. We're not really reviewing a lot of shows.
Ended, so
Say that again?
All the shows ended.
Was that?
All the shows ended.
Well, they're not all ended. We still have Andor.
Well, a lot of them did.
Yeah, a lot of them. And then there's some new ones coming, but we're kind of in the...
Or on breaks or whatever.
We really only have Andor right now.
Mainly, yeah.
So... what we wanted to do is kind of cover some news because so many exciting things are about to happen in the world of fandom, correct?
Yeah. Sure. I bet.
So for those of
well,
you,
Black Panther's out in a week. If that counts.
just
yeah.
a quick warning
Black
for those
Panther
of you
will
that's
be good. That's a week away.
What?
Black Panther is a week away.
Black Panther's a week away. So for those of you that don't find my Avatar 2 hatred, be prepared that this episode will have some of that, even though I haven't seen it yet.
Depending on how good Avatar is, we might do a second podcast next week, like we did. We did one like that last week, right?
You mean Wakanda?
Yeah, for Wakanda, like we did for Black Adam.
Yes.
And I imagine if we felt the need to like rush to talk about Black Adam,
Yes,
then I imagine
maybe we
like,
should just rush right over here after we see it.
No, I don't want. It's good. It's 3-hour film.
It's okay. That's not 3. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, good. Oh,
it's 20 minutes, 23 minutes shorter.
You have to wait
than Avatar 2.
That doesn't count like the 10 minutes you gotta wait during like the credits for like the first and second post credits.
No, that counts everything.
No, I don't think it does.
No, it counts.
No, isn't runtime like just the actual?
No, runtime
like,
includes credits.
No, I don't think that's true.
It's true.
I don't think that's true.
It doesn't include trailers. That you have to get out there and and it's like the movie starts at 9, but it doesn't. It starts at 9:30 because you're half an hour of
sure
trailers.
That doesn't include
I don't know. I'm not gonna. This is not the topic we want to discuss. Who cares? All right. Anyway, so you got some stuff. Here's our list.
I don't got anything. You got.
Well, we've discussed. I have the list, but so
I'm completely unprepared.
So the first thing is obviously last week we talked a little bit about. Everybody knows that Henry Cavill's back as Superman. There's all kinds of rumors floating around with that, but what was announced is that he will not be continuing in the role on The Witcher.
Which puts a nail in the coffin. Well, actually, it doesn't, not like financially, but to my, like my chances for that show, that just basically, like, unless they're able to improve everything about the show besides the portrayal of Geralt, which I think is probably, like, the only, like, uber positive thing they have going for them in terms of, like, The Witcher, like, because, again, like, The Witcher, obviously The Witcher is based on, like, both a novel and then, obviously, I think, like, the thing that most people have had exposure to it with is the games.
Correct.
Like, the really, like, popular game series. Witcher 3 was, like, a game of the year.
Right.
And it's, like, probably one of the best games ever made. And, like, it's in the Witcher world, at least, like, in the world building and, like, kind of, like, the way they've kind of framed everything, I think it's been a disservice to it thus far. But the one thing that wasn't a disservice was Geralt and Henry Cavill as that character.
So the funny thing about it is, and I didn't know this either, is that they've already filmed the third season.
Yes, he has one more season.
So he's still around for season 3.
Yes, so which is almost worse. That you get to, but
I
guess you get to say
you're actually right. It actually makes it worse
to be
because
fair, I think he's rather iconic as Geralt.
Yeah,
I think he's like, because again, like rather, I don't think The Witcher's great. I don't think it's bad either, if I'm being honest.
He's great,
but it's just kind of like the average, like The Witcher is basically what like is the average adaptation nowadays, which seems of like something old, which just seems to be like suck all creativity out of it and like kind of make like
Sure.
like to me like The Witcher, a show like it is kind of like is like Halo.
Yeah.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
I think Halo has done much worse. Because at least,
Sure.
like, because like there's
I think
a lot
most
less
people
going
would agree
on
with you.
in
Yeah,
Halo.
yeah.
At least, like, there's more trying to go on in Witcher.
The little bit of research that I've done, I think they, at least in Witcher, they've tried
Yeah.
to make it seem more like the games and the books and all
the
that
second
stuff.
season does a better
Where Halo,
job,
they didn't even
like,
try. They didn't
yeah.
even really try. You
No,
know?
and I think like on a lot of, and even like there's been talk of people that were in the Witcher writing room, and I think this happens a lot for like, and this is probably the case for Halo and some of the
Right.
stuff, that like so many of the times the writer rooms that get made for these shows, like the writers actively dislike the IP. Like so for Witcher, we know from like people that were in the writer
Why are
room
these
that you
people
have that you
hired?
had many writers that actively
I don't know,
dislike the Witcher
why are you
games.
hiring these
Like,
people?
and we know that there was Halo people that were like, "We don't even gonna look at the games."
I'm
before
not
we
looking-
make the
I'm not
movie," which
playing
is
the
like,
video
Then
game.
who are you making the like? Because
It's like, I'm going to make Gone with the Wind, but I'm not going to read the book.
Because like, what's the point? Okay, so like, so
It's
my
like
my
the
thing with,
Ryan Johnson
and my
model.
thing with Paramount
Hire
was
that
this.
guy for
Did
Star Wars.
When Paramount made, and this is kind of going off topic, but when Paramount made Halo,
What a surprise.
But when Paramount made Halo, this is just like me. This is completely off topic for
okay,
for
sure.
this. Like they literally thought, based on like how like their writers, at least they hired writers that they thought this way, so they like must have been like thumbs up to this line of thinking.
Sure.
They literally thought that they were just buying when they got Halo or when you get releasing Halo, that like the value in that was just having like an IP that and like what was in that IP and like but they didn't actually.
I'm sorry.
They didn't, no.
Clarify. I asked you a
Let
question.
me finish because I'm almost
No,
there.
what does IP stand for? I don't know.
I
what
don't fucking know.
Oh, is IP just
It's
like?
just like intellectual property.
Oh,
like,
thank you.
just,
I didn't know what IP stood for. I'm
Bro,
sorry.
you're gonna
I wasn't.
That's what you're gonna like dislike.
I'm not dissing you. I just didn't know what you were.
Disliked.
I wanted the reference. I wanted to know what
Oh my God.
IP stood for.
All right. Either way. Well, either way, they've just viewed it as like I guess like the IP, but completely devoid of like the actual storyline of the game. Just like the IP, and like that's Master Chief, and that's his action figure, and we can do whatever we want with it, and like vague and read some books and get some little context. But they didn't actually view like any of the people that like had played the game since like 2000,
Right.
Like for like the
This is
20
a point
for the
we've
20-year
covered.
lifespan of the game. They didn't view those people.
Do
as,
you
like,
feel that
as
The
built-in
Witcher was
audience at
closer,
all.
though? Witcher
It
was closer.
closer, but certainly like you
Well,
still weren't satisfying the needs of like those diehard fans.
So let's get to the
Both
point.
the novels or the games.
The reason why The Witcher is highly successful, let's be honest, if you could put it on
And
a
it's stylish.
pie chart, I would say 65% of the reason why it's successful
Yes,
is because
it's
of Henry Cavill.
And then the other like
and maybe 20% because of the Bard.
and then there's a bit and then like the guy who's it's not Dandelion, but I forget Jasper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I know
whatever.
what you're talking about.
It's different in the game versus in the show, but
The female character's pretty
Yennefer,
good.
people like Yennefer, and like, I think
Yennefer.
Yennefer's a relatively
The little girl who's
solid.
growing up
They haven't
is
given very much
okay.
to do. She was like in season 1. She
I
had
think
nothing
this
to do.
season she's
Like,
gonna get more
In season
to
2,
do.
she was better when she got to work.
Yeah.
Once she got to work off of Cavill. Like once their relationship starts to form, which again is the baseline of the games and of the story, is the relationship between those two.
Right. So for example, like if I was doing a rewatch of The Witcher right now,
yeah.
like I'm gonna go, I'm gonna rewatch episodes of The Witcher.
Like, I
I'm gonna
enjoy The
watch.
Witcher.
I do enjoy too. I'm only gonna watch episodes that are heavy in Henry Cavill. Ones that were heavy on Yennefer and when she was like had the hump and all that shit. I'm fast
They
forwarding.
just have
I'm
long
skipping
terms
those.
of each of the
I'm
characters.
skipping a lot of that.
But I'm saying like the only thing that's kind of kept you involved was like I think the monsters are actually pretty well. Like,
yeah, the monsters.
like
I got no
like,
complaints.
There's a nice variety of like stuff in that.
Let's
sense.
get to the point though. The point is,
But like the world building's not
their
great.
third season, people will watch it probably, or they might boycott it now because they're mad that Henry Cavill's
Either
gone.
way,
They may not even watch it.
In some
They
sense,
might
at
not
least.
even watch it because they're mad that he's gone, or some people won't even
I mean,
realize
it is,
that
like,
he's
the
not
fourth
gone
most,
yet.
To be fair, it is like the 4th or 5th most watched thing on like Netflix of all time. Like so,
So-
it is like incredibly popular. We have to realize.
But-
there are valid criticisms, but it
But
doesn't mean
let's
how,
be
this
honest.
is
Now
super
let's get into
popular.
the recasting. They're replacing him with the least talented Hemsworth. right?
I don't want to be like too. I haven't seen Liam Hemsworth in anything, and like
He's everybody's
years. But
least
isn't he
favorite
like-
Hemsworth.
But also, I felt like he certainly gets cast
He's
in less
like
big roles.
he's
than
not
he used
Eli
to.
Manning.
Like,
He's not like he's not the other Manning. He's the other guy that never played football.
I don't know.
Like I know he obviously is an actor, but he's not. He's not like he just is. They needed a guy.
he's like younger than like Cavill though.
I
And to be fair, like Cavill is in as good as Cavill is, Cavill looks a bit young to be Geralt. And like that doesn't help when you're getting like a guy that looks even younger than him. And I don't think like
he regenerates.
and to be fair, I didn't view Cavill as Geralt at all. Like when
Okay.
it got like announced.
Yeah.
I thought like, oh, he's a big dude. Like obviously he's gonna fit like the physicality of the role. But he didn't like strike me as like he would being able to pull off like the vibe of Geralt. Not that Geralt's the most complex. Not that Geralt's the most complex character in the world. Like he's like the tough like kind of quiet like grunty. He grunts a lot more than most other people. Like and that's kind of his like main like unique.
That's
thing is him
every
just
meme.
grunting like.
Just him saying, you know. That's
But to be
it.
fair, like Geralt's a very, very fun like character.
Yes. Okay,
I
so
don't
let's
know.
get to the point. The point is ultimately they recasted him, and people are mad, and they're going to boycott it, or they're going to do a petition, and we'll see what happens.
A petition.
They're going to. It's you know me and my. Me and petitions.
I'm banning petition talk on the show. We're not talking about petitions.
We're gonna make fun of people
we're
that
not-
think
no,
a
we're not- no,
petition
we're not-
is
no, we're
going
not-
to fix
they,
it.
They don't deserve even like credence. They don't
Okay.
deserve like my breath. Like you're wasting like years of my life
Okay.
talking about like the
Okay,
air,
well, wait till I get
the
to
air
Avatar.
I breathe.
Wait till I
like,
get to Avatar. So, well, that's all I got on that one.
all right, great.
That's all we have.
Anyway, I'll watch
can we
one.
come
So
ba-
either way, I'll watch one more season of The Witcher, and
Yeah,
then
I'm
it'll
gonna watch
probably,
one more
like-
season, and then.
Well, to be fair,
let's be fair. If we like it, I'll give Hemsworth a try. I'm not those people.
and maybe they've adjusted behind the
Maybe
scenes.
he'll
and
be
maybe
good.
because again, like the second season is better than the first season, I think.
Sure.
So like,
Yeah, definitely.
I would say so. They improved slightly. It
Yeah.
wasn't quite. It still wasn't quite where it needed to be. But maybe they'll do an even better third season. Hopefully, we'll get either way. Hopefully, we get a decent goodbye
Right.
to like Geralt or
Right.
Cavill's Geralt, or at least like he gets to do some cool shit before he goes. So
All right, well, let's skip all the Avatar stuff for now.
sure, why not?
Willow trailer. There's a Willow trailer out.
There's been a bunch of Willow trailers.
There's a
out there.
lot of Willow stuff out. Willow comes out at the end of November, correct?
I think that is. Yeah. it is.
This is a Disney Plus property.
No, fantasy-esque kind of.
We talked about this a little bit, just you and I yesterday, obviously not on a podcast. Obviously Willow was created by George Lucas. It was kind of like after Star Wars came out. Obviously, the guy who plays Wicket, the Ewok is Warwick, who's been around for
I
a
don't even
long
think I've
time.
seen that
He was a young kid. Ron Howard directed it, I believe.
I think so.
Val Kilmer's in there, but I remember my friends and I going to see Willow, and we were in high school or college or whatever it was, and I think most of us kind of viewed Willow as kind of like. Now, Star Wars is fantasy anyway, but I feel like they went with the if George Lucas did his,
more pure fantasy.
I think George Lucas did pure fantasy.
Instead of
If
sci
George
fantasy.
Lucas did Lord of the Rings, this is what it would look
It's like George Lucas's approach to like a medieval fantasy type concept.
his version of Tolkien.
Yeah.
It's a lot lighter than obviously Lord
Than
of the
even
Rings.
Tolkien, yeah.
Than even Tolkien. It's and to be
They
honest,
might make it a little bit more.
many of
for
the
this, but-
like if you watch it now, I think, and if you watch it with this in mind, it just reminds you of Star Wars. Like like Val Kilmer's kind of like the Han Solo character. The princess is like Princess Leia.
See, that's what I kind of got the vibe of.
Willow's kind of like a comet. He's kind of like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, to be fair,
because he's the thing.
Yeah, I know there's a newer trailer, but like the D23 trailer, which is the one I've watched a few times, like that trailer gives me some like Star Wars vibes off of it.
Sure.
Like the one with that has like the three like kind of like creepy looking like obviously the villain characters whatever in it. And those ones I'm like, okay, so this is like so I'm like, okay, so like the vibe that I'm seeing with the characters and even like the type of jokes and stuff is very, very, very light.
Right.
But then you even see like the super kind of dark stuff, which is kind of like Star Wars, because Star Wars is very much like kind of an isolated like kind of like fantasy story with like a kind of a smaller group of characters taking place in a world where there's a lot of non-fantasy shit going on and a very real lived-in place, but just in this one corner, our heroes are having this fantasy-esque adventure. That is Star Wars. Like, in this bubble, there's a fantasy-esque... All of Star Wars, the universe itself, is not this fantasy
I think
La La
that's a
Land
really good...
of like...
That's a really good way of
happiness and,
looking at it.
Like, again, the Star Wars universe is not the vibe of the Star Wars movies. That is the frame of, like, the saga films, in my mind, when I watch it. It's supposed to be, like, this is, like, supposed to be, like, kind of the more... kind of like outlandish fantasy story that is happening within like a larger, more real place, and that kind of was the vibe I got off of the Willow trailer.
Let me
when I saw the
again,
darker stuff
haven't
going
seen.
on
I haven't seen the movie in a long time, and I'm gonna get when we get closer to the release of the show. I'm gonna watch the movie again, and it's a good movie. There's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't a huge hit or anything. But it's obviously had a following for a lot of years, hence the show coming back.
I've seen a lot of people have great nostalgia for it.
That's what I just said. Like it's kind of got it's always had a nice following. It's not the greatest property in the history of film. It's not the worst. But what I'm looking forward to with this is that I don't think it takes itself super serious. Like it's not going to try to do, and we kind of talked about this, like this thing where we're going to take Tolkien, we're going to do the Rings of Power or whatever it's called, and we're gonna make this like do these things that aren't even really about the book because the book's very black and white in terms of good and evil. I don't think Willow's going to do that.
No,
I think Willow's pretty much going to be there's dark forces, there's people that are fighting, and I think like obviously I think the only person I think the princess maybe has a guest appearance. I think really the only character back from the original thing is Willow. Everybody else is
apparently the small dude is from the.
Oh yeah, that's
apparently that guy is from the original one too. But I've noticed a lot of people because I watch like the people.
I'm pretty sure that the two little guys, the two little guys that are the R2D2 C3PO, but the best way to describe them, I'm pretty sure it was the actors that played Lenny and Squiggy on the Laverne and Shirley show. We're both act. Well, the one actor is the guy who played. We just talked about it. The spinoff for Breaking Bad. Saul's brother is a very well-known actor, but he just happened to be in Laverne and Shirley as Lenny and Squeaky. I may have gotten that wrong, but the two characters that are kind of like the weird little short guys are basically C-3PO and R2-D2.
I don't know where I was going.
I mean, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah,
and if I don't like it, I'll stop watching it. I mean, I'm not gonna I'm not married to it. I'm not like I have to watch it. If it's not good, I think it's going to be good.
It looks decent. Yeah, it looks pretty solid. There's a lot of kind of actors I recognize actually.
Yeah.
So.
And when I've seen in terms of production values, the production values look good.
I like Forrest Whitaker. Not Forrest Whitaker. What's his name? Warwick Davis. I don't know why I said Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah. So he's back, and he's really only about 50-something.
No, Warwick.
He was a little kid when
he.
I don't think people realize when he was playing like the Ewok, what he's most famous for, that he was like a kid.
And
like he was like 10.
Almost.
He was a little kid.
He's been in a lot of those other Star Wars films since then.
He's been in a bunch of
Star
things.
Wars characters. Yeah. He's done a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, he's been around and done obviously.
Been around Lucasfilm a long time.
Yeah, good. Well, good for him. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually that's what I'm most happy about. That Warwick Davis just get to literally lead like a Disney Plus show. Like, so like.
Well, again, that's the.
I just remember what I was thinking about. I found a lot of people that were kind of like, because when did like Willow come out? When you were in like high school?
Yeah.
So like, I found a bunch of people that seemingly were like almost like younger than like you, maybe like in their 30s and stuff. I was seeing that were like kind of like people that kind of react to trailers and stuff, and like a lot of people like in that age group kind of like were. Getting very like nostalgic for it, so it seems to be like a lot of people that saw it when they were a kid.
It was '88, so I was in.
So a lot of people that seemingly saw it when they were a kid, or like when they maybe in the '90s they were growing up and their parents showed it to them when they were a kid. I think that's who, that's
a really good
here.
point because in '88 I was already in college. I was already I was a junior in college. So you're totally right. I think the people that are slightly younger than me, they're probably like 50, have a higher level of nostalgia. Because remember, I said it came out after he was kind of done with Star Wars. He didn't really know what else he was working on. He was doing some Indiana Jones movies, but George Lucas didn't have a lot going on after Return of the Jedi. He did, like I said, he had Indiana Jones, and then this was his next big thing.
More Star Wars stuff on like the wider wings.
Yeah, but I mean, really, to be honest, like this was kind of like a dark time. It was the dark time, like where he had Indiana Jones, but I mean, it was kind of even that was in between like.
Well, to be fair, like it's kind of if you look at it one way, it's kind of
and
like,
I think that's a really good point. I think people that are slightly younger than me have a lot more nostalgia because they kind of grew up with Willow more than I did because I was already.
To
in
be fair,
college.
I've always looked at kind of like the weird kind of break that Lucas seemingly takes, like between like the two trilogies, as like he does like the 3 Star Warses, he does like Willow and Indiana Jones, kind of in that period, and then like he gets to like 1990-ish basically, and he's got nothing going on, and then he basically spends a decade like on the prequels. It's kind of what happens.
And I've seen
like,
some interviews where,
not to mention like the amount that he's involved in like Industrial Light and Magic and stuff,
right?
Like in the background. And,
no, you're right about that. Like I remember that. I remember an
Lucas
interview
is, like, directly involved with the development of so much technology.
I remember interviews in the 90s when he decided that he wanted to do more with Star Wars again. He didn't really have and there was a lot of backlash in the beginning because I think people just wanted sequels.
Yeah.
They didn't really want prequels, and that was kind of, I still think that's part of why people were kind of goofy towards the prequels originally because I think they wanted to see Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
I don't think people... Because again, there's
until they came out.
There's
until
a real
they came
ambition to the prequels that he just wasn't the filmmaker to kind of realize. But like there is like a level of like the original trilogy being a very much a good and evil kind of story. Because that's the kind of the vibe of like especially the original trilogy. I think that vibe is eroded somewhat, especially when the prequels where it gets very grayed and blurred, like the line between like good and evil, obviously, because like. Right. Obviously, the Republic is the Empire and all that, with the weirdness of that. Right. And, like, so you have, like, a kind of like a more simplistic good versus evil story with, like, even though there is, like, a lot more subtlety to it, obviously, with, like, Andor and, like, Rogue One has added plenty to it. But, like, with the original trilogy. But the prequels are a bit more... There's a bit more, political, like, importance to it, a bit more nuance.
If you think of everything...
It's not executed as well,
Let me make a point about that. So, I think I agree with you on that a lot. I think if you think about it, most of the stuff that we really like about
Star Wars on its head.
If we think about the stuff that you and I really love about Star Wars, not counting the movies 1 through 6, everything really, except maybe not Mando, has a vibe that's really similar to the prequels. Clone Wars, Rogue One is obviously a bit more like Episode 4, just because of the nature of it. But I think most of the stuff we really like really is, and even how we like what we're watching now with Andor, is so much more about that dark, more political stuff that we see with that are really inspired by the prequels, not so much the original trilogy.
Well, even prequel era, like so for the Star Wars shows, and this very much comes across in Mandalorian, given it's like some of the same writers, mainly Filoni. Right. But like you very much see the structure of like Clone Wars episodes in much of the live action.
Right.
It's there like you can very much they just are kind of like there are a bunch of like 35-minute Mando episodes that very much have the pace of like a Clone Wars episode.
Yeah, that's what my point is. Yeah,
but like they're just a bit longer. But you can tell it's almost like
stylistically though
it's almost like Lucasfilm being like, this is what we've done in the past that's TV based or like episodic based.
Yeah,
that's like
and that was the point I'm making.
And obviously I think there was a level of like almost transition for like a guy like Filoni to like actually be able to change from like the 20-minute style that he was like perfected, honestly, or not perfected, but like did a very good job.
He's pretty damn close. He
does a pretty solid job of making like intriguing episodes like on a pretty regular basis. You've been watching a lot.
Yeah, no, I lately have been watching. I've been watching the Clone Wars.
And you're on the later seasons, which is like
and that's kind of where I'm getting to now.
Which is kind of when like the animation gets up to like a really impressive level, and when the storytelling reaches a good level as well.
Right, well, let's move on to that because we're going to come back and talk about that a little more when we get to Andor.
Yeah, definitely.
At the end. So speaking of the
Star
sequels,
Wars, right?
Speaking of the sequels. So Kathleen Kennedy, in some kind of press, I don't even know what the context was.
So
it was an article or an interview or something, and basically Lucasfilms, which is Kathleen Kennedy's division, admitted that the prequels were rushed. The sequels were rushed, and it was. And here's what the quote was, and I'm not getting it exactly right. That we were pressured by the fans to produce something. And then what we produced, the fans didn't like. So she's not wrong.
Nope, actually, she is completely wrong because there wasn't a single person in the world that was like, "We need you to make Star Wars." Because here's the thing, like that's great, But you acted like it was so hard. You had a fucking script. When you bought Lucasfilm, you bought the sequel script
I'm not saying
from George Lucas, and you threw it out. You put it in the fucking shredder. So fuck yourself, Kathleen Kennedy. Like, just they want no. There's not a single Star Wars fan that would have complained if Disney waited 10 years if they had just designed because again they never once treated Star Wars like there was a little bit of it with at least with the way they treated the first one when it came out.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens felt like an event when it came back, at least. And in a sense, at least in the feel, that movie feels the most like a Star Wars movie of the three.
Sure.
And it's the only one that is that is passable in my mind as a film. Or is it even a Star Wars? And I have great problems with Force Awakens, and I think it has plenty of things that kind of set the franchise up for failure. Not to mention it's a horrible world building film. I don't need to get on that rant again.
Yeah, we've done that 12 times. So it's the movie really is it's a movie for Harrison Ford. And that's really, and some other characters, bringing back some other characters. Yeah. But I agree. The J.J. Abrams
but there's not a single Star Wars fan, though.
The JJ verse, the best way to describe it is like we do in Star Trek.
Good thing.
It's the JJ verse, and that's the problem with it. And the same reason why Star Trek fans don't like the JJ verse, the same reason I think Star Wars fans don't like the JJ verse. And that's the best way to describe those three movies.
Also, it's funny the corporations acting like the consumer. Actually, they listen.
Well, I'm not saying
they listen.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I agree with.
Laughable.
It was just funny that all of a sudden we've got this weird statement that came out, and
because again, they're probably getting enough pressure at this point. Because again, even Andor, Andor's
she's trying to rewrite history.
Because again, we've gotten to Andor, which is really good, and I don't think it's a weird show in the space it occupies, and even with its name, and it's a Rogue One spinoff kind of. So
I'm still waiting for the Ewoks.
I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, I don't really have anything else on that except that.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
We still got a bunch of other things we want to get to.
Again, we've said last week, hopefully she's gone by the time Indiana Jones comes about, and then she can just bow out.
I really hope she's gone soon. Ironically,
because there's no point. Because again, you also have Filoni making. She's
been involved in Indiana Jones, and she's not been a problem in Indiana Jones.
No.
But she was never in charge of Indiana Jones.
No.
And this is the only thing that I think
with money are creative, right? Those two mean the same thing.
We've already had this discussion about Kathleen Kennedy 27 times.
She's just a money person. She doesn't develop things.
She's again, if I had a script and I wanted to win an Oscar, I'd hire Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah,
but that's
if I have an idea,
her genre,
I want her to fund the idea.
Her genre,
that's great, man.
Her genre is Oscar movies, and this is not what she's involved in.
Kind of,
yeah, she's not a fandom
which is stupid that she didn't understand that she actually had to make something that lived up and wasn't just a modern bullshit mainstream rendition of Star Wars instead of actually making a competent sequel. Because again, here's the thing: as much as you don't like the prequels are striving for something pretty and that has been, and even if the message.
But now everybody likes the prequels.
Exactly, which is they started off, which honestly they did one weird thing where there was, it's early 2000. There was a weird level of prequel hate.
Yeah.
That has dissipated completely, mainly because of the sequels, but also because of Clone Wars is starting to eat away at a generation.
Okay, well,
so right when Clone Wars was starting to become the behemoth it was, they started doing their trilogy and completely ignoring anything prequel related. It was the plague. So anything slightly political, anything or in the politics of the Star Wars galaxy, anything in the theme or vibe of the prequels was gone. They put Rebels out, which is different.
Here's what's really wrong with the prequels. I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but I think most people like me that aren't I'm farther into Star Wars than most people are. But I think the average person, and you kind of said it a few minutes ago, is probably the problem was some of the filmmaking choices were bad. So too much all the clone troopers being CGI was terrible, especially back then. Jar Jar is so fucking obnoxious that a lot of people couldn't get past Jar Jar. And to be honest, like the little kid in the first movie, and I feel bad because he's obviously been like butchered over his life because he was
honestly. If I have to,
some of the directing hurt the. I don't like. No one complains about like the scope of the movies. The scope is accurate.
No, here's the thing: the idea is like so grand.
Yes.
Like the idea of like the political machinations of like one dude and like the failure of a whole republic and then like the
story's there.
And then the using the actual and then like kind of using the actual real discontent with the government to then usher in like which is like literally history and like is very
and
relevant.
that's why,
and it's even very relevant now.
Well, that's why it's grown. That's why I think it's grown in stature and appreciation because I think people now and I don't
truly
and they were super ambitious and I think that
and to be fair,
he tripped on stupid stuff like marketing, like making too many toys.
Yeah, I don't think it was too big. I don't think that it was possible for maybe if A New Hope was not A New Hope. The
Jedi.
Phantom Menace was more like just in the background. Like if the Phantom Menace was like a story that was just told or like mentioned within the other films, because I don't think you could tell like the way. Like again, I think even now the story was only been fully completed with like all of the additional Clone Wars information. Right. I think genuinely completes the whole picture.
We said before that I think you said it that the Clone Wars and Filoni have fixed what we know about the prequels.
Yeah. It's just that's that big idea that Lucas had. It's just very hard to like do all the twists and turns, to like do the big falls and massive changes in personalities of characters, and of falls of entire orders and rise of empires. How do you do that in 3 movies? That's a lot.
And those movies are a bit rushed because you weren't doing 3-hour movies back then.
No, they're not really.
So they were a little longer. They were real. They probably would have been served a little bit with maybe an extra half an hour. Here and there, things like that.
Lord of the Ring, they aren't too far off from like say the Lord of the Ring movies.
No, but I feel like they were just they needed to be.
All the technology is probably more expensive.
Well, I mean, like again, the too much CG. Like guys like me, I was pissed because I was used to a Yoda puppet, and then I got a CGI Yoda, and I just didn't feel like it's felt right. And I know that's a silly little minor thing, but he got way too impressed with the technology, and everything was green screen. And that, I think, hurt the movies a bit.
I don't think he realized how fast the technology would grow and develop, too. Like, because again, I think the prequels aren't the worst things in the world, but they don't, like, certain stuff doesn't stand up nearly as well as, like, it could.
But the space battles do.
Oh, yes. But a lot of the models and stuff are all, like that all, like, I don't know. I still don't understand that. Because, like, even, especially in 3, is, like, the best, is the best example. Like, those space battle, like, 3 is just about as good as,
beginning of 3?
Yeah, like, those, like, models and the spaceships you see there
but
are about
did
as
that
good
scene.
as anything model.
But directed that whole first sequence.
I actually don't know.
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it makes sense.
No, he did. Like Lucas, when he said, "I am overwhelmed, and I need someone to help me with this entire first sequence," and he's like, and it's his best friend. So Spielberg was like, he just came in and just helped him storyboard it.
That's like the only bit of, and again, it's like probably the best like 20 minutes of the prequels, maybe.
I don't agree with
There's
that.
like some really good banter in there. There's like a Dooku versus Anakin. There's like a Palpatine like tempting Anakin to the side. There's like R2 being himself.
I don't
battle.
Yeah,
like it's nuts how good like that for after the kind of the up and down that 1 and 2 is to then run into 3 and it's like, oh, they just nailed 25 minutes of this opening. Like which is like they never would have expected given the previous 2 films.
It's funny because obviously like we know now what happens between episode 2 and episode 3 because of Clone Wars. Yeah. But like you go in and all of a sudden like Anakin's real dark, and not that he wasn't dark at the end of the second movie, but he's really dark because there's a time jump obviously because of the Clone Wars, and we're just supposed to feel like, oh well, war has changed.
See, I think it would have been better suited. Like first off, I think say the prequels are like 5 years delayed,
right?
And say like the first one is in 2004 instead of in 1989. Instantly, like the technology is less annoying.
Well, yeah, but he didn't know that.
Well, obviously, but I'm just saying, just like
Lucasfilms was
films are longer.
Lucasfilms was significantly involved in the creation of that technology.
Very true. Actually, that's actually 100% true. Like
Lucasfilms and Pixar,
he literally developed
90% of what we see nowadays is because of the work of Pixar, which people don't realize. Pixar and
Industrial Light and Magic.
and Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
And again, there's a thing, and I've started watching. I haven't finished it on Disney Plus about the history of Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah.
And those people had no idea what they were doing. Which
they're
is
just like trying to figure it
They
out.
were literally a bunch of guys, like it was like the Beatles. They just had a bunch of guys
making
that
shit
that didn't really know what they were doing and just figured it all out, and it was somehow it all worked. It just all worked.
Yeah.
Do you want to do my bit on Scorsese or just skip
we're just
it?
skipping. I'm not talking about that old bitch.
Okay.
He's
mad
He's a
that-
cranky old dude. Like
He is-
that's all it is.
Well, get off.
Just because he's like 80, just because he has like 17 Oscars or whatever, doesn't mean that he's not also a cranky old dude.
He is a
like,
cranky
he can
old
be
dude.
both.
He's it's either him or Cameron who wins the get off my lawn.
Nobody's walking around like the MCU should get the Oscar every year. Nobody said that. There hasn't been one MCU movie that's like we love this and we're
There's
gonna give it the
stupid
Oscar.
fans that think
it's
that.
Like, and if he
Endgame.
wants people to
Endgame should have
and
won an
also, if
Oscar.
you want
No, it
people to-
shouldn't.
If you want people to like go see your if your thing is one that
This is like a trigger for you.
it really is. Because like it's fucking stupid. Like if you really
Again, that's why I call it the old man. Get off my lawn.
Is he mad that people
It's
are
the
going
get
to
off
see
my-
those films
Yes.
instead of like art or whatever he's talking
No.
about? Like
The context of this conversation. This is the again.
these are the only films.
Okay,
that make
let
money,
me
he
explain
realizes,
it
right?
now.
Like,
Let me talk. Jesus. So no, like this is the get off my lawn award, like the old man get off my lawn award. So what Scorsese was complaining about, and this is where he's kind of right. And then we'll move on. He was basically saying that Hollywood and in general, like streaming services and everything, are obsessed with how much movie box offices make.
that's true.
Where 20 years ago, they didn't need to like triple and quadruple their money. Movies were allowed to be minor hits, and some movies were allowed to lose money. Like they knew, Ridley Scott knew that Blade Runner was going to lose money. And he wanted to make
You're
it.
bringing me to we got to get off. You're bringing me to a political place because
no,
I have the answers, but they're
No,
not
but so
fit for
that
this
was
podcast.
that was his only his only point was in this article.
So he's critiquing capitalism.
He was
Is that what he's
no,
trying to do?
he was saying
He's
that
inadvertently
he's
critiquing
saying that,
capitalism.
and this is where he's wrong though. This is why he's wrong, and because he is an old man, and this is where he gets himself off.
Because that's all he's criticizing here.
No, what
It's
he's
just
wrong about is that there are places where you can go make these projects now. Those are called streaming services, and they don't care if
like Hulu,
Hulu,
Prey.
Netflix,
Like
Amazon
Prey is a good
Prime.
example
There's a
of that.
lot of things on those streaming services that they greenlight and get made. And they don't think they're going to make money because they don't need to make money on that one because they're making $8 zillion.
Does he think Netflix
Let
is
me
making money
finish.
off his properties? Like,
No, he doesn't get. He thinks that the movies are where all this stuff gets done now. He thinks that all these movies are greenlight, even though they're going to lose money, even though that's not the economics of movies anymore, but it is the economics of streaming services.
Yeah.
If you have some great project that you want to get greenlighted, you will get Netflix and a lot of these other streaming services because they're willing to take chances on things and they're hoping it becomes Stranger Things. Yeah. And if it doesn't, they cancel it. But they give a lot of young filmmakers a shot. Like that, what's that multiverse movies that we watched?
I mean, to be fair,
Like-
I will say, like, this happens, like, Netflix is, like, one of their main critiques is, like, they start all these shows, but, like, there's a lot of shows that get, like, pretty decent followings, enough where, like, there's enough people to complain about it for a good amount of time, and then they get canceled after a season or two on Netflix.
Yeah.
So, like, there is a level of where this isn't the worst thing he's ever said.
No, it's not.
To be fair, like, I understand where he's coming from, but again, like I don't know, man. Just
shut up and promote your movie.
did he say anything about Marvel this time? I
No,
just
he didn't
always
this time.
assume.
He
Then,
had
like,
nothing to say about
Okay,
Marvel
then
this
that's what I just assume every time.
I think he was
like,
insinuating that they want everything to be Endgame.
I don't know.
I don't think he didn't say that. Though. I'm moving on because I don't want you to be all upset over there.
Anymore.
Tell me about Wonder Man. First of all, I have no idea what Wonder Man
I don't
is.
fucking know either, man.
But it's been announced.
I mean, it's either a show, might be a special presentation. There's some rumor about that.
This
they
is
announced-
a
they
Marvel
announced the actor,
property.
though.
This is a Marvel property,
Yes, it's a Marvel property.
and he is a superhero.
Yes,
I don't know anything about Wonder Man.
It's
He's not related to Wonder Woman. They're not
No,
related. It's
not at
not
all.
cousins. It's not the.
No.
It's the male woke version of Wonder Woman.
Sure, but I think he can like teleport and like. But I think he's just a strong dude, if I remember.
He's
correctly.
because he's
Like,
wonderful.
I don't know. I think he has a bunch of stupid powers. But either way, like I fucking it's Yahya. Is that what's the name?
It's
you have it written down there.
Yahya Abdul Mateen II.
Yeah. Who's most known for like I don't know, probably Aquaman. He was black.
He was in Aquaman, but he was
Who's,
also
like,
in.
who's, you know, if I remember the guy who's just like there to set up the next movie in like
Yes.
Aquaman,
Yeah.
he's them.
Yeah.
Cause, like, cause,
But he's
like,
also in.
That's the stupidest part of Aquaman is that dude has no reason to be in it.
Right, but isn't he
there's-
in the other thing too?
He's like, cause there's
The
one scene in
Watchers.
Aquaman where like he fights the guys on a
Right.
submarine, which again doesn't have anything to do with the rest. Actually, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, because they got hired, right? It's part
Yes.
of the whole thing. But either way, like it's just totally a side, like it's like a total like side fiasco throughout the entire film.
But he's also.
But he's good. He's
But isn't he
fine
Dr.
as a character.
Manhattan, too?
But mainly he's Dr. Manhattan, which he won an Emmy for, and he was really good in that role. And he's been in a bunch of
So
other,
let's focus on
like
that.
Oscar bait. I hate the word Oscar. I say
Yeah,
Oscar
that's-
bait a lot.
yeah,
when
you
talking
should-
to
you
things,
shouldn't say
which
that.
is probably a more derogatory term than
It
I
isn't. No,
implied
it's
to-
not probably.
I don't mean
There's
it
no.
I
Yeah,
don't
you
mean
don't
it
mean it to be
derogatory at all. But I just think when I say Oscar bait, I just mean like movie that like is kind of in like the more high drama like sphere that's maybe aiming for like award season.
But you're
bullshit.
not. You're not wrong.
It's just,
They know.
it is a somewhat depreciating term, but
No, it's a little bit that way. Like, but there's nothing wrong with that because they know what their movie is. If you go in and you pitch your movie to Kathleen Kennedy, whoever it is, and you're saying, "I think we can win an Oscar with this," I mean, that's what The Godfather was. They wanted to win. They thought they could. They wanted to make a movie that would win the Oscar.
And to be fair, there is less value in that now. Just considering nobody watches the but again, they still do fight out the studios still do fight for it though. Don't get me wrong. They still
it's
they still
the
do PR
prestige.
campaigns and there's
Winning
still
the
a
Oscars,
massive,
winning the Super
there's
Bowl.
still
So
massive
it is not
it's
nothing
not like
anymore.
as much of a
They don't
like,
care about the Oscars on TV, but winning the Oscars is freaking huge.
It's less of a more of like a public like spectacle now than it used to be. But it's more of like in the industry, like this is still like a fight we're still having.
Industry, like if
not to
I'm
mention like it's the industry.
if
people
I'm
that are, it's the
TriStar
industry people
Films,
that are picking. So
if
like,
I'm TriStar, I'm Warner Brothers, I'm whatever. I want to win a fucking
popularity
Oscar.
contest amongst themselves. So like yes, they can't be self-important to that group of people. Like even if the wider country, I guess,
I don't
cares
disagree.
less and less about
I mean,
the Oscars.
you know, like Woody
it will
Allen-
always be a.
Woody Allen makes the joke. All they do is
bubble.
Hollywood is they give out awards, like greatest fastest dictator.
I mean, it is like
Hitler.
it is a bubble.
But
like,
it's because the only people who voted on it are the people in the. But winning
again,
an
I don't
Oscar
want, like-
is still the biggest thing that you can do.
But then again, there's also plenty of people in the general public that like don't create anything that I don't want to have any say over what's good art and all.
True.
If I have to be honest with you.
True.
So, so I'm actually kind of fine with it
like
being a bubble.
podcasters like
So-
us. We shouldn't have any
Either way,
say in
it's
it.
gonna be bad and stupid. So nobody's gonna get it right.
Okay.
Anyway,
Moving on. You said that they cast.
wait, how did we get from that? Were we talking about like fucking Wonderman?
Yeah, because Yahya Abdul Mateen
But anyway,
II
yes, very excited.
has been in a
I
lot
don't
of
care
Oscar
about,
bait
I didn't
movies,
care about
is what you
Wonderman
said.
at all. But
Who?
like as a character,
Who?
shut up, man. But he's a good. I like that actor a lot, though. So
Okay.
I'm like, maybe I actually have more of an I don't know, an interest in that show now, if that makes sense. Now that he's in it, there's some rumor that Bob Odenkirk was being eyed for a role as well in that show. So
that was being spread around.
So if you
today.
get a couple
Yeah.
more things like that, then maybe you're gonna have yourself. Not to mention that Wonder Man is like kind of like a West Coast Avenger, which is kind of where like the Vision, we think Vision quest that we talked about last week, right?
I don't know if we talked about it on the show that there's a lot of talk that
Vision. And that seems very likely.
They're working on a Vision show
or
or something.
Called Vision Quest.
White Vision.
But the Vision that we saw at the end of Falcon.
Yes. Well, isn't he White Vision?
Yeah, but the new version they built or whatever.
They don't call
Which
him.
that is a like kind of.
Do they still call him White Vision? Because that seems
I don't think
problematic.
they call him White. Actually, I think they do call him White Vision in the comics. If I remember correctly. I don't know.
No, but I think if you're right, if they're developing a show, we're going to start getting things like West Coast Avengers and things like that. Then we're going to have
And
the
even
East Coast,
like,
West
run
Coast
that, like,
battle.
the run that like
They'll start shooting each other.
Like the
wait, no,
title
that's
comes
rappers.
from
Never mind.
like the title Vision Quest is from like a West Coast Avengers like thing, and Wonder Man is like one of the more prominent members there. Like Scarlet Witch is in that team. I think War Machine maybe.
Well, we have to
like,
get her back.
Hawkeye
first.
usually is the leader of that team though, so I have no idea if like that means we're gonna like. Get
Well, maybe
Hawkeye, like,
his
back.
daughter, or no, whoever's taking over.
There is 2 versions of the team.
Isn't what's her face taking over?
There's a kind of an older version of the team that has like more of the old Hawkeye, Wonderman,
Right.
and people like that. But then there's also a team that has Kate Bishop lead it with some younger people like America Chavez and stuff. But I'm imagining that she's going to be on the Young Avengers.
Is Matthew Modine going to be in Vision Quest?
No, not the not 1980.
Not
Matthew Modine movie or whatever the fuck year it is. Like
Matthew Modine. He's a high school wrestler, and he gets seduced by a woman that's way too old for him.
And he gets murdered by
No,
a
he
woman
he
and sniper
wins
rifles.
the wrestling something.
Isn't Matthew Modine the guy from Stranger Things?
It's a bizarre movie. It was a fun
Isn't
movie.
Matthew Modine the villain? Isn't that like
From
Papa in Stranger Things or whatever?
Papa. Yeah.
He's like whatever.
Well, why?
Brenner, is that his name? Brenner? Is that his name?
Yeah. Loudon Swan is his character's name in Vision Quest.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you realize why he's the bad guy in Stranger Things.
Yes, because he's from
the 80s.
Yes,
So,
I get
I mean,
that's
well, no, but
that's
I don't
every
think
actor in Stranger Things that's not a child.
No,
is
no.
basically
All
an
the
actor from
adults,
the
all
80s.
the adults are big '80s stars.
Yeah.
And most people, I think, realize that.
I think
but
besides
Matthew Modine was a big
besides the
'80s
cop,
star.
I
What?
think. Besides the cop, I think.
The cop?
What's the name?
No, he
Is he
wasn't.
from the 80s?
I don't think he was around back then.
I said besides the cop.
Yeah.
I'm saying like I don't think the David Harbour.
Paul
was like that.
Reiser,
But
Bob,
obviously, like what's her name was
the mother.
The mother is the biggest star.
Yeah,
from
most
the
of the
80s,
other
like,
ones are all. A lot of
Reiser
those
especially
are all
Mhm.
big stars from the '80s.
Yeah.
So this movie's not about wrestling. Is
Okay.
what you're
Yeah,
telling
no.
me. Okay, I've killed that joke, so we can move on.
Great.
So.
Other Marvel thing, right?
I
This is a quick
hate
thing,
to
right?
say it like, oh, great, another character that nobody knows nothing about.
I mean, Aubrey Plaza is talented.
I mean, that's the good news.
Again, Marvel continues to just cast, and that's the thing. Like Marvel just can every casting I see for Marvel, I'm like, well, that's a talented actor. I'm like, oh, that's another.
Well, they
talented actor.
they
like,
are attracting.
and like the talent level seemingly increases, like as the more farther they get into it. So
Well, it's a funny thing, like about. So, like, as you know, your uncle runs a theater company in Rochester,
Yeah.
New York, and it's a very talented, it's a very amazing theater company,
Mm-hmm.
and he taught me this a long, long time ago. He said, you know what, they do like a ton of things a year, and he goes, but not all of them make money.
yeah,
So they do important shows that are by Jewish authors and things like, because it's run by it's a Jewish community center theater, but
Yeah.
it's semi professional is the best way to describe it. It's more than just amateurs. And what's cool about it is they do certain shows every year that they know they're going to make a lot of money on. So they kind of sell themselves out, so to speak. They try to do it to the best of ability. They try to raise the bar on what they're doing, but they do a show they know they can sell out 9 performances of.
Yeah.
And that way they can raise enough money doing those things so they can fund all those other projects that they want to do. So if I'm an actor,
and I've been begging.
and
for
hold
Marvel
on,
to do
if
that.
I'm an actor and I want to do a bunch of independent films, do my own thing, and Marvel knocks on my door and they offer me $20 million or whatever an actor gets to be in one of these movies, I'm going to do it because then I can afford to go do the things and maybe start my own production company or whatever it is. So a lot of these actors are smart. They
Not to
use
mention,
it as
there
a
is
way.
Disadvantage. There's
Yeah.
one disadvantage Marvel has against like DC in this overall fight. They can't do like at least at the moment they seem very much not inclined to do something both in terms of the isolation of it and in terms of the matureness of it. They seem very like they don't have the Batman in their like repertoire at the moment. They don't have like a film like that they can pull out. They don't have the Joker. They don't have those films like that are not like MCU films or like I think Black Panther actually will be the furthest thing removed from like the typical run of the mill like formulaic MCU film that we've had in a while.
Okay.
But DC does they can do a really stylistic outside of like the rest of their film like the Batman. That's like a bit different, a bit more focused. That doesn't have the same like Marvel.
They're not trying to build a universe with it.
For where Marvel is, like
Right.
I get that like there's a formula and you like find the and I guess corporations and they find the formula that works and like there's a bit of that to the MCU. I don't think every film and every show is the same formula repeated like some people act like it is.
I don't think
Like,
I don't agree with that, but
I'm not trying to simplify that much.
But yeah.
But I don't know. Like,
James Cameron.
But there's a level of like you have the most popular thing already by far. You can have a crazy idea. You can produce better stuff. And like maybe if you produce better stuff, then the overall quality and the line of thinking of what mainstream is will improve to be better. and then you can be, instead of like having the same stereotypes that get thrown at you as the MCU, you can just produce things that are a bit more competent.
And I don't.
And, like,
I agree with you because that's what they're doing with Black
treat themselves
Panther
more
too.
seriously.
With Black
So-
Panther 1 and Black Panther 2, they brought
that's
in
the
an
biggest
amazing
problem, is there's been
director.
so little
They brought in
seriousness.
amazing actors and
Yes.
actresses, and they're making something that's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they can't apply that to a lesser scale on some lower levels.
It's ridiculous that, like,
and I think they have
hate
done
this
that
idea that, like,
successfully, but just not consistently.
there's this bullshit between like kind of like franchises. I would say like with something like a Star Wars or like a Black Panther or like or like a Marvel, I guess, a DC. That like, well, I guess DC has done it a few times, or not, like where the studio doesn't treat that film like it can be like a piece of art outside of just being like another like chapter of like a franchise. Like, if that makes sense. Like, too many
Sure.
Marvel films just treated like, here's the next like chapter that's kind of like a bit like can be kind of replaced with another film. But instead it's like, or we can have like something. I don't know. I kind of lost my.
I'm not sure where you're going with
I don't
this.
know. I lost my train of thought a bit. So
Okay.
I'm
Well,
gonna have
let's
to cut
just.
that,
I
'cause-
know what you're saying there. I don't just they. I think sometimes I think what you're trying to say is that
Yeah.
Marvel sometimes gets so concerned about putting out a bunch of content instead of making sure that everything is up to the same level that it should be. And they waste actors, but maybe if they bring in an amazing actor, they should also be looking for who's the best young independent director. They did that with Thor Ragnarok. They got a hot
like,
young
I'll have
director.
I'll just a good example.
You know?
Why? Like, one of the first times I've ever seen this done, and like Tom Cruise actually, like, as a producer, is kind of like Marvel doesn't always, and like sometimes they do. Every once in a while they get like a better director, and like they get a gem, obviously, because that's kind of how Marvel works. It's like you get like 3-4 films a year, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are really good. That's kind of what the MCU has been for like most of its run, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
But like, think about a guy like Cruise when he produces something. Think about the last 2 Mission Impossible films and how much better than the average mainstream film they are. Think about Top Gun, which is a mainstream film. Like, it's a mainstream type of film, and like think about like the quality, the thought, like in terms of like the production, the stylisticness of it. Like, in that, why can't Marvel do something like that?
Well, here's
like,
the reason why in relation to Tom Cruise.
he doesn't have a lot of power.
Because Tom Cruise just does what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a franchise. He doesn't have a universe. He has Mission Impossible is his universe, but he doesn't plan to put like a show out or 4 movies a year. He's going to do a movie every 3 to 4 years, and then he's going to do a couple other independent projects along the way that he wants to do. And then he's been working on Maverick. He wanted to do Maverick for a really, really long time. But he said, I'm not going to do it until I have the script that I want. So there was a lot of scripts that have come and gone that were terrible that he refused to do. He finally got one and then he got some good producers.
Yeah,
He got a really good director and
great actors.
Great actors, but and let's not plate the importance of the technology and the cinematography of that film. There's some amazing shots in that film, and I mean that film.
Because
That film could win.
it's gonna
Should win a
Oscar,
bunch
yeah.
of Oscars.
It probably will.
Cinematography. I mean, I would argue that.
And it made money. Here's the
if-
thing: it made money, and you want to know why it made money? Sure, yes, it's been being built up for 2 years, which is a little bit of like, and it kept getting delayed and stuff. And like, it is like the return of like kind of a very iconic like single film from like the
Right.
80s or whatever. But like it proved though. Think about it: you can make like a film that is like a sequel to like a franchise or
Sure.
what we'll call it, and you can make it really, really, really good to like the point where like maybe it might win an Oscar or 2, and it has like a super high level quality of filmmaking, and it made billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And Marvel should have learned that lesson after the first Black Panther, which is a film that gets treated like it's on that level sometimes, and it's not. It's a good film. It's one of Marvel's better films, but it's not like this great, outstanding, like, because the third act mainly.
I mean,
but
it's up now. Worldwide gross
like one of the
100 almost $1.5 billion.
see, if you don't look like if you're a studio and you have like major properties that already make money, like if you have Marvel now,
Right.
and you're like, oh shit, like this Top Gun, which maybe a film like Top Gun succeeded because it's not Marvel. Like maybe and it's like it's something done so incredibly well that isn't wrong. Maybe like it's the contrast.
I think they just made a good movie.
But surely, but what I think is mainly here is like what it's been proven, and I think this gotten lost a bit in Hollywood. You can just make a really, really, really quality product, and it'll shine through.
Sure.
No matter what it is. It could be Top Gun. Like, the original Top Gun isn't the greatest film in the world.
No, this movie is significantly better than the original.
Significantly better than the original Top Gun.
Without a doubt. And I think because, again, they waited, they didn't rush, and they made the thing they want. And I'm going to kind of go back to something from a cinematography standpoint, from a production standpoint. Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but he's incredible in this movie. Yeah. And I think him, as well as Teller, like the one who plays the girlfriend, they're all as good of actors in any other films that I've seen this year. Yeah. I could believe one of them could be entitled for an Oscar nomination. Yeah. Like, it's a good enough performance to take a character that, is really kind of a cliche, and to interpret a new version of that character like 20-something years later, 30 years later, whatever the heck it is. Yeah, why not? But he won't because he's kind of ostracized in Hollywood.
He's slightly ostracized.
So I mean, but he would. I mean, even from a direction standpoint, I could see this film getting nominated for best director.
I forget who directed this.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. But I definitely it's gonna get a best picture nomination.
Speaking
of definitely gonna get best picture
of directors that are going to be nominated for the Oscar, I think we're going to transition into the Russo brothers. In their latest endeavor to make Hercules the live-action musical that we all need.
And the latest, like, of the latest.
At least if it's live action, it's live action.
Their IP dry. Like,
yes. Their intellectual property. That's what IP stands for, ladies and gentlemen.
Just bleeding, like, just let's remake it again.
Is this? Can I ask you?
Which I will say.
I didn't see this article, so let me ask you the question: Are they doing? Is this like this Disney?
Yes.
So is this?
That's what I'm saying. It's the latest. It's just the live action.
No. But is this? So this is the live action version of Hercules, of the animated Hercules. This is not a different Hercules. No, this isn't just because there's been 8 billion Hercules
like the Rock
movies.
Doing Hercules. No, this is like the animated Disney film Hercules, but in live action.
Okay.
But what like did you?
But it already was a musical.
Was it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So they said it's going to be a musical. Inspired by TikTok, and that sentence makes me want to like cease existing. It makes me want to like my consciousness to cease.
I don't even know what the fuck that means.
That just makes me. That's the most dystopian. Like,
what does that mean though?
I don't know. Like it's.
Like Hercules is doing TikToks. Like he's gonna put his phone down.
There's some weird thing about like music and like how music and like attention. There's some weird thing about like attention span and like. Which anytime I see when you get like a corporate person or like a creative person start to talk attention span because of like TikTok, I'm like thinking like, are you starting to think of like that one? Remember that one fucking movie app that was like on your phone that you could only watch when your phone was standing up? Like, remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was around for like 2 seconds.
For 2 months, and it was like the guy who like invested in. Hulu,
oh, what the heck was that called?
What the fuck is it called?
That's gone.
It was only 15 minutes.
It was done.
It was like, and it was the funniest thing was about that. I don't know. Oh, I gotta figure it out.
Yeah, you look it up. Look it up while I'm.
For a sec.
What? So he's looking to look that up because that's something we gotta certainly. What the heck was that called?
Yeah, worst app idea. The streaming. That's gotta be.
Vines are gone. Remember Vine? It's not Vine though.
What the? I don't.
It came out during COVID.
It did come, which is the worst time.
It was the worst possible time for something to come out.
Because
it had no content.
Well, yeah, there was very little. It was all professionally done. Because again, it was all like 10 to 15 minutes, and some of them were like 10 to either way.
Whatever it was called.
What the fuck?
Don't worry about it. It's not that important.
Either way,
because it's dead. So
yes, it died within a year.
It died
but it was there was a massive marketing blitz too.
Yeah,
to the point where like there was like Chance the Rapper and was at a show and like all these different like major actors and actresses and stuff like all had shows that were like 15 to like 8 to like 15 minutes long, and they were like, look, like kids they like watching stuff on their phone and they like watching short form stuff. Kids don't have attention span. They like TikTok and YouTube. But I'm like, okay, that is true. Like kids do like yes, like we have we watch a lot of they watch YouTube, they watch like TikTok, but guess what? What YouTube has. Like, and this is the big like the streaming war's already been won. Okay?
Quibi.
Quibi, yeah, that's it.
It was
Yeah.
Quibi.
Which is fucking
I would have never remembered that.
Because again, this was their model. Their model was, and again, their competition wasn't. They viewed their competition as like Netflix and like Hulu and stuff like that. Their competition was YouTube. And guess what their model was? Their model was paying A-list celebrities, God knows how much money, to do 10-minute episodes of whatever they were doing that they had to pay to produce themselves and then put out. Instead of YouTube's model, which is just, we're not going to make anything and everyone will make it for us for free and we'll give them half the revenue and we'll take the other half. And they thought they could compete.
Right.
And they thought that would be a model that would work.
Poor Quibi.
Like they thought that was
Poor
the most
Quibi.
moronic business. Like then that dude was like a billionaire. Like I don't know. Like if that proves to you that you can fail upwards, like more than anything in life, beyond just Elon Musk existing. Like that proves that more than anything. But like other than that, like you can fail upwards, y'all. Just believe in yourself hard enough and lie to yourself, and you're, or if you're a billionaire, you're investors, and then there you go.
Okay. I don't even remember the songs from.
In Hercules, I've never seen that film.
Yeah, because you guys weren't.
I wasn't a Disney kid. Like we watched a couple Disney films.
I do remember
when we were
Zero
kids,
to Hero.
but like
I do remember that
I don't
one.
know. Like I remember like we only had like a certain assortment of Disney films of that ilk when we were kids that we watched. You only had like 5 or 6 that we
watched.
kind of rotated
No,
through.
but we watched all of them up until you guys weren't interested in them anymore.
No, because I only remember I remember a lot of Lion King. I remember like
Lion King, but we watched all the Pixar.
I remember Pixar, but I don't remember like Disney animated stuff. I don't remember like
there
half
wasn't
of,
a
like,
lot
the
of Disney
90s.
animated at
No,
that
but I was
time because
more
they
like-
shifted most of it.
No, but you didn't show me anything from like the '90s, like Renaissance era of Disney, like besides like a couple things. Like I didn't
Well,
see
you-
like Pocahontas or like.
you hated Pocahontas. You watched it once and you hated it.
Okay, so you just never showed it to me. It's like
Yeah, like
I
I'm
was
not.
6, man.
You showed them. We showed them.
Well, I
you
just
just
don't
weren't
recall.
interested in
Like
them.
okay, so you did show me a lot
Yeah.
of these films. I just
You
don't
just
remember
didn't
them
have
at
any
all.
interest in them.
Okay,
Like,
so
you didn't like
I only remember,
Pocahontas.
like Lion King. Like
You didn't like. Well, I hated Beauty.
you never
and the
showed me
Beast.
Aladdin. You've definitely never showed me Aladdin.
I don't. I think it was. You know what? I'm gonna. You're gonna laugh at this,
Yeah.
but you know why?
Why?
I think it was in the vault.
That's fucking stupid.
I think.
That's
I don't
fucking
think it was.
stupid.
No,
The
there
Disney
was.
vault?
No. The funny thing about it was the movies weren't all out.
That's
You
fucking
couldn't
dumb.
get them. Like it's not like now where everything's available all the time.
Disney's fucking
There was definitely things that were in the vault that were out, so they would
Right
like.
next to
So
Walt Disney's head.
Aladdin wasn't something you could just go to the store and buy because it was only out for a period of
It
time.
was right next to his fucking frozen.
And
head.
when Aladdin came out the
his
first time, you guys weren't even born yet.
Well, obviously, yeah.
So I mean, I think
Well,
like
I wasn't born for any of these films I'm talking about. I'm just saying, like, I don't remember watching when I was a kid, like the '90s era.
Brother
of, like,
Bear,
Disney
you saw.
animated.
You guys like Brother Bear.
That's after I was born. I like. That's,
Oh, you mean the ones
I'm
prior
talking
to
about
that?
the '90s, like the
Oh, the
90s,
90
like
ones.
the so-called
Well, yeah, Beauty and the
Renaissance
Beast
of,
you
like-
hated.
Well, to
No,
be
but
fair,
you
like-
liked Mulan.
I like Mulan. Yeah, I remember Mulan.
We
I,
still-
I remember Mulan. Anything with
What's his
if they had-
name?
If basically
'Cause-
they had an animal in it.
'cause
I
what's
was-
his
I was
face
like,
is-
Yay, animals.
Yeah, well, anything with animals you
Anything
liked.
with animals
Well, you
was
were
like,
for.
yay,
But
there's
I
a
mean, what's his
dragon
face?
talking.
Mushu's still again the greatest character.
Mushu's the best Disney character, and anyone who is lying to themselves if they
Yeah,
don't agree with
and that's
that.
why Mulan, the
I'm
live
the
action
only
one,
that could
died.
be right about this.
The Mulan live action
I
died because
will fucking
Mushu
never
wasn't
watch
in
that
it.
film.
Okay.
I will never watch that film.
Okay.
Because they didn't put Mushu in it.
I know you're very upset about this.
I don't give a fuck if it was like if they found it.
I can't wait for them to do live action
There's
Brother
Mushu.
Bear when they do that, which is two.
I can't believe they were like
bears
we found it
walking around.
disrespectful. I'm like, what, man? It's like it's a dragon, man. It's like
Well,
I
they-
guess it was supposed to be like her ancestor or
Yes.
something. Like I guess that
I mean,
was
let's
like
not. Can we? Like,
slightly.
but here's the problem.
I mean, usually we're pretty like
I mean,
we're pretty
but
like
but
what's it called
they
on
were
the
so.
show,
But here's the thing: why this movie was stupid, and I read enough about this to know the answer to this. It was like we're gonna not have things.
there are some weird
Let me-
things in that movie.
let-
There's-
We're going to like
The
we're
Mongol
going to
portrayal is great.
respect the culture, blah 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 blah, and we don't
Oh,
like
for
the
the new one you're
disrespect.
talking about, yeah.
And then, but we're gonna throw a witch in. Which
Yeah, that
there's
didn't make-
nothing
which
in
there
that
was, like, yeah,
culture that's witch related.
Here's the evil witch on the other
It's
side.
like,
And I'm
what? Why is that
Which
in here?
I guess that's like I guess that's better than just like because again the original villain of Mulan is just like the most racist looking Mongol guy. Like
Because that's what he was. That's what he was.
But you didn't have to make him look like that, man. Like he looked. Like,
He's supposed to look like Genghis Khan.
I don't know,
And
man,
that's
like-
every drawing of Genghis Khan. That's
Oh yes, that's obviously what the inspiration
was he supposed?
is. Like,
What should they made him a white guy? I
don't know,
Should they
man.
make him like Joe Biden or something? Like
I
he
think
should be like a
there's
dude.
some like thought that his like it's slightly racially insensitive, like
I
how those
guess,
characters look.
but-
I guess most people don't know what Mongolians look like.
That's
but,
what
like,
he was supposed to look like Genghis Khan or
I
some
don't know,
other.
apparently it was
like
offensive to
Hun,
Mongolians, I guess. I don't
some
know.
Mongolian.
I don't
like,
know. When I see that, I don't know. All I know is for whatever reason, when I see that character now as what I am now, I get slightly, it's slightly off. Like there's something. It's not the worst thing Disney's done. There's plenty of much more egregious examples of like poorly designed, like racially, like insensitive Disney characters. There are plenty. There's even some in this movie, if I had to guess, with some of like the fellow
I'm sure there
soldiers, if
was.
I had to guess.
Yeah, I'm sure
like,
there was. I'm sure there was, but whatever. I
not
mean,
to mention that like they
it's
also,
scared for little kids. Like
Not to
let's not
mention,
take
didn't they,
ourselves
like-
so seriously.
Didn't they like change like a bunch of weird stuff in that film? Like
there
with
was also some. I don't want to get
didn't
into
they
that.
change like the like
That maybe the one guy had a crush on the other guy or something like that. They
no,
did,
no,
they
there
did
was
a
like,
whole
there's-
like, gender
they
thing.
changed like the guy she was into, right? Wasn't there like something where she was supposed to be into like a I don't even remember. but
Let's
I
not
seem
talk
to
about it. We don't know
recall
what we're talking about
No,
here,
no,
so
I
let's
seem to
move
recall
on.
there was like they were talking about like she was gonna fall in love with like a white guy, like instead for this film. I'm gonna literally look this up and bring
look
it
that
next
up.
time.
We'll
like
look
I'm
it
gonna
up
bring
for
up the
a second.
Mulan.
Let's move on.
Mulan
Let's move
saga,
on.
the live action.
Let's move on. All right, so
We're really off. Like,
all we have left is for me to bitch about Avatar and
God. How long are
and,
we into this?
and Andor.
how far are we into this?
We are at 105.
Oh my god.
So
We never do anything.
the only thing quick, this is gonna be another quick episode. Andor. We watched episode 9, and I was hoping we weren't stuck in the prison for too long, and sure enough, I'm glad we're stuck in the prison.
Yeah, I was happy. I was like, this is good.
This was really good writing. This may have been the best episode.
This is my favorite episode so far by quite some distance. And I think there's been other great episodes too. I just really, really appreciate this episode.
Well, in the episode they introduced Andy Serkis, they also brought in Forrest Whitaker. So
Yeah.
we had two great actors show up in the same episode. I think that was episode 8.
Yeah, last episode.
And now we're in episode 9, and I just like the whole prison,
And there are 3
escape thing that's going to be building, and I like where they're going with this, and the fact that I didn't even catch this that you did, that one of the other characters, Melchi,
Yeah.
who's a background character, is a background
In
character
Rogue
in
One,
Rogue
yeah.
One. So we're getting a character that's going to obviously be significant, but it's done in such a nice,
And they're
subtle
already
way.
like making him and like him have him like friends that are kind of like
yeah.
because basically there's a couple there's like actually there's 3 really good things in this episode. There's all the storylines in this episode are all like equally like
Yeah.
pretty compelling actually.
Yeah.
You got like some Mothma stuff which is pretty good.
Yeah.
You get the prison stuff which this entire episode is basically kind of like you realize like Cassian is formulating something.
That's what I liked.
He's like, and even in the first episode, there's little things of him looking around and like piecing stuff together.
But
you see
it
him
almost
start to,
felt like we thought that we were gonna like, oh my god, like he's
but you
being
see how
broken
he's
a
already
little
like
bit.
squeezed in. All his fellow guys are already
Yeah.
like super like.
He's become a heck of a leader for his group.
Yeah, exactly. Like they
You
like
know?
him a lot. He's already embedded himself. Even he's at a different table, and the other guy, there's another guy at the other table when he's trying to like mess with the thing that talks to him and is like allied with him. So obviously he even has relations with like guys like across the room even. So like obviously, and they have a sense of like what he's trying to plan as well. And he's just trying, we feel for most of the episode, he's just trying to break down Kino, who's the
leader,
Andy Serkis's character, who's kind of like the
He's the
manager.
floor leader. He's
like the manager. Which
Who
is also,
just wants
which is also
to-
a psychological thing as well, to have one prisoner kind of watch over all the other ones
Right.
and like kind of keep them in
Well,
line.
the really cool thing is Cassian realizes that they're not even paying attention to these guys. They turn the lights on twice a day, and that's it.
and
because
they zap him a couple times.
they
like-
zap them once in a while. They get them all living in fear, and then they realize that, oh my God, no one really gets out, and that's where he's able to kind of,
And then in the entire episode, though, because it's over multiple scenes and pretty long scenes too. And there's even one scene where there's a scene where you hear about like hear the ruckus or whatever that's going on like across the building, and you realize that like the power goes out for a bit, comes back on. There's a couple panic. They have like a communication system between the different tubes and stuff, and there's like kind of panicked messages coming through to like they're trying to signal to each other, and then you get to like Kino's character later. They kind of learn that like one of the different floors, because there's all these different like kind of worker rooms. And, like, an entire section got, like, executed, basically. Basically because they realized that, like, they had sent the guy back to either they did something wrong and realized that the prisoner hadn't got out of prison. And so to hide that, they literally just killed everyone.
They just move you to a different thing.
Yeah, they just move you to a different place where nobody can ever learn that you just got moved and you actually didn't get freed. You're just actually there for slave labor. Like, and you're never going to be free. Like,
it's interesting because that was... And you said this when we were watching this.
Real quick though, there's this one scene when there's the realization that that they're all dead, basically. That like there's a whole other group dead, and that people aren't getting out. And then Kino is slowly having a realization of what's going on, and you see it on his face when he starts to announce. He's like, "It's just a rumor. Like we don't know what happened. Everyone like remain." And you see, and it's just an incredible amount of acting. Like that his face is just doing, or like his face and the realization that's slowly, the dread that's slowly coming across, the worry, and is completely opposite of the words he's saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it's funny because
an actor of like
because what I liked about it is
to pull it off.
Because Andor's been asking him how many guards are there, and Kino won't
in the last line
won't answer, and he's like, "There's like 12 guards or whatever."
After
because now you know he's in.
After one of the older guys.
So now we're gonna get the prison break episode or some variation. Of
it. It's literally after the most frail old guy who's like literally being forced to work.
Who they were all trying to help.
Has a stroke. They literally can't save him. They literally have to euthanize him, like just right there, like on the floor. Which
one thing I want to wrap up that I think let's wrap it up. We won't even do the.
Well, actually, let's talk about the beginning real quick.
Well,
real quick.
Two things.
We have to talk about Deidre.
Do the Deidre scene, and I want to say something. You can end with the Deidre scene, but you said something that I want to throw up before you do the Deidre scene is that usually we're used to seeing the Empire be kind of like bad at what they do.
Incompetent. Like Obi-Wan's the best example.
Until we see ISB, is that what they're called?
The ISB is
like how efficient they really are, and how like they're true believers. Like these guys are hardcore. Yeah. This is the real strength of the Empire. This is the IS and the SS in World War II in Germany. Like these are the Nazis. These are the Nazis. This isn't the German infantry. These are the Nazis. And I think that they've really done a great job of establishing that this is why the Empire runs, because of the dudes in the white suits with the poofy pants.
Yeah. And the extended universe and the novels are full of the horrific deeds of the ISB. Right. So like they actually have like a full-on, like there's an entire scene where first Deidre starts the episode off, and she's in this episode cements herself as one of the best Imperial officers we've ever got in Star Wars, and is like gives herself almost like a Inglourious Bastards beginning scene moment, like interrogating this like Bix, and she has this like incredibly like creepy line. Like, the worst thing you can do right now is bore me. Like interrogating Bix. At first, she kind of like tries to butter her up. It's like, you're a business owner. It's like, you didn't like know any of this. And she tries to almost like turn him against the guy because she was the only one using it, and try to make it seem like that the guy that we saw the last episode that was getting tortured before her was kind of like trying to push off like the risk of it all to her.
Well, just get to the point you wanted to make about that scene.
But either way, then Deidre's just super good in that scene, and sets herself up as just like a really fearful Imperial like antagonist. But then the scene after, which we get like this doctor almost, and like describe, and this is like the creepiest thing, like that, and this is what the Empire is. Like they in a throwaway thing, they're like, well, we happen to find like this sentient species like on this one planet, and they just happened to be, like really hostile to the fact that we wanted to put our nice like fuel depot on there. So like all to the point where like, we just gave the local commanders like any means necessary to do it. So like, well, we genocided them all. Like, what they were implying there. That planet was genocided, which that now is like the third planet that I know of in Star Wars canon, like confirmed genocided. Like the Geonosians.
Well, I mean,
like,
I think it really
tried
sets
to do it in
up.
Rebels. They did in this.
It really sets up that why the people that are forming the rebellion are so desperate for this to happen.
Well, even then,
and they're willing to get to what they need to get to.
And I'm not even halfway done with the horror. Because,
Okay,
that was just, like...
You got to wrap it up.
Well,
So
real
get,
quick, no,
get through that quick.
Because literally, like... This is just the story of like where their torture technology comes. And it's like, and just so happens that these alien species, when we genocided them, they make this really fun sound that is literally mentally torturous to the people that hear it, and we edited it. So this is just the children doing it when they're when we're genociding them. So put these headphones on, and that's literally the scene. And
I know.
And then you get to see the horror on Big's face. She literally screams. Like, it's supposed to be like so horrific that it's mind numbing. It literally like melts the brain. Like, it's
she screams in about 4 seconds.
They literally were genociding a race. Realized that like the screams of that race dying in said, like, horrific event could then be used to inflict further torture. And we're like, oh, we'll record that and we'll use it. Like, that perfectly describes, like, ISB and especially the Empire. So,
on that happy note, on that happy ending,
it's not the most happy thing in Star Wars.
Well, no,
but it is
I mean,
accurate, and I appreciate it. Like,
well, it's funny because we don't really know, like what they do to Leia on the Death
Nazis.
Star because we don't see these things. We know they kind of torture Han Solo in kind of a traditional way in Empire Strikes Back, but we've never really seen like this kind of psychological ISB kind of thing that they do.
Yeah, that's like concentration camp experiments on people.
Yeah, sure.
Type shit. Like,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
what that is. Like, that's like mentally torturing
Marathon
people.
Man
like,
2 reminds me of Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman. Like, is it safe? Is it safe? And the doctor keeps asking these questions and pulls his teeth out and stuff like that, like fingernails, like that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool stuff. So yep, we're gonna wrap it up. What we're gonna do is not torture you with my complaints about Avatar 2 or the trailer. We'll save that for next week. Maybe we'll do a special. I'll do a special rant
do a little bit extended
of Avatar and how excited I am for this piece of shit film coming out. The only thing I'm gonna say is that I think it's hilarious because they're all about their fucking water, and we're going to get their water technology.
We don't know that necessarily,
we're going to get their water
idea.
Technology in Wakanda before we see it in Avatar.
Well, at least some level of it, I would
So
imagine.
anyone who's like, oh, look, I've never seen this before. Like, yeah, you did. It was in Black Panther 3 weeks ago. So F you,
And
Avatar.
to be fair, I will say, like, it is a
We stole your tech.
It might be, and here's the thing. I have fully imagined that this is going to look really, really good on the big screen, but
I'm
it
sure
won't
it
look
is.
good like when you put it on your phone one day or when you put it on your TV.
I'm not going to
So-
say the movie's not going to look good.
No, nobody's arguing that.
I just don't give a shit.
It's just like, oh, I don't.
For $14 billion, it better look good.
It's like, I'm pretty sure we've moved past like the point when in cinema where you should just be able to put out something that looks nice and then be like, ooh.
Yeah, because now everybody can do it. You can do it with an app now. So, all right. So we'd like to thank you all for watching this latest episode of Next of Kin. Thanks. Hopefully you stayed because it was you were entertaining. I found you quite entertaining. I riled you up quite well in this episode, which is when we're at our best. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll be back next week with another exciting episode.